Hey mathematicians, let's do your homework. So we have pages 31 and 32 for homework, which should start with this one right here. Which values below will make this statement, this inequality, true? Negative 3x, when it's smushed like that, it means negative 3 times x is less than negative 225. So let's remember when we're dealing with numbers that are negatives, less than means to the left of. Especially, I mean, it always does, but especially when we're dealing with negatives, the more left it is, which means the more negative it appears, the smaller it actually is. So we've got two strategies that we can use to solve this. One is to isolate x, and one is to do a guess and check. Now, the thing that I actually normally would recommend is to isolate x. However, there's a 7th grade skill about dividing with negative numbers across an inequality symbol that we haven't learned yet. So I'm actually going to recommend the guess and check strategy for this, since we haven't learned the 7th grade skill of dealing with inequalities with negative signs. So the guess and check method is, okay, negative 3 and times something. You're going to guess and check each of these options. I can actually eliminate one right away because I know that negative 3 times negative 80 would give me a positive number, and it's never true that a positive is smaller than a negative. So let's see, negative 3 times 41 gives me 123, but it's negative. Negative 123, is that less than, is that to the left of negative 225? If I have negative 225, and 0 is way over here, is negative 123 on this side? No, so then A is not going to work for us. So you can guess and check negative 3 times 63, negative 3 times 85, and see which one gives you a number that is even more negative or smaller than negative 225. We need to discern between expressions and equations. Equations have equal signs. Expressions are just the problem without an answer. A triangle has side lengths of 3, 4, and 5. The triangle is enlarged, that means made bigger, by a scale factor of 2.5. When you do scale factors, you want to make sure, okay, if 4 was on the bottom, then you put the answer for 4 times 2.5 on the bottom. If 5 was on the right, you put the answer on the right. It doesn't really matter to me where you'd put your 3, your 4, and your 5 when you start. What matters is they just have to match up in their placement. And then you're going to want to record the longest side of the new triangle. This one takes a little thinking through. What is K, the length of a rectangle whose perimeter is 12 and its height is h? So you need to think about, okay, do I multiply perimeter and height to find the length of a rectangle? That doesn't really sound right. What is the volume of a rectangular prism whose width is 12 and whose height is h? Wait a minute. Volume is length times width times height. That's not what I see in that problem. What is the number of inches in h yards? Yeah, there are 12 inches in a foot, but there are 36 inches in a yard. What is the area of a triangle? Okay, I know the triangle area formula. Where the base is 24 and the height is h. Okay, half of 24 is actually 12. So you really got to think that one through. Here, we are looking for more than 15, but less than 25. That does not include 15. That does not include 25. Those would be like open circles if you were graphing them. You're counting up how many numbers there are. And last but not least, 2x plus 0 is the same as 2x. Which property says it's okay to add a 0? This one we did like a day of in December. So the one that we've spent the most time on is the commutative property. That means that you can do something in any order. You can do 4 times 5, not something. It only works for multiplication and addition. Is the same as 5 times 4. Same for like 2 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 2. But I am not switching the spaces of two terms in these. I just started with 2x both times. So this is not the commutative property. The associative property is who you hang out with. Remember my spray tan SpongeBob poster? If you have a number plus another number and then you're like, oh yeah, after that, I'll add one more. That's the same as saying, I'm going to add 5 and 1 first, and then add 4. If it's all adding, then they are equal to each other. However, there are no parentheses in our example, so it's not the associative property. Identity property and inverse property confuse me because they both start with an I, and it's harder to tell them apart. But I do know this word inverse means opposites. So that property is when you're saying like, hey, -4 plus 4 equals 0, because adding opposites. Or when you say 1/3 times 3 equals 1, because you're multiplying opposite, like reciprocals. Identity property is our answer. That has to do with, oh, it's okay to add 0 to something. That does not change its answer. And it's also okay to multiply something times 1 because that does not change its answer. So our answer here is this plus 0 is showing the identity property.